You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community and forum, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from fresh farm ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind.
Well, good morning and hello, kids, and welcome to Season 3 and episode number 92 of the Daily Beaver here on the Crier Media Network. Today, recording day is Wednesday, April 5th, 2023, and it looks like it's going to be a rainy Wednesday here at the Beaver Lodge. Let's get that ground nice and wet so that we can have beautiful things grow from the garden later on, right? I'm your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver A, and with me, as always, is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly, and with us today, we have a special guest, but more on that later. Of course, a big thank you goes to our podcast's founding sponsors, the Peppermaster, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and CanadianTarot.com. We have a Wednesday morning nibble for you, but first, we do our most important thing, and that's say hello to you, Mr. Grizzly, and ask you how's your mental health today.
Well, Mr. Beaver, I'm a little tired,
Okay.
but it's I woke up every 60 minutes last night, I think.
Ooh.
Yeah. Um, One of those things. I'm in good spirits, in a great mood, just a little. I'm not fully awake yet. It literally was wake up, roll over, look at the clock. 12, 1, 2, 3,
I
4, and
love
then the
to
alarm
count.
goes, and then the alarm goes off at 5. And I'm like, no. And I fell asleep, and I woke up when the second alarm went off at 6, and here we are. So yeah, I'm in good spirits. I'm feeling good, but just a little tired, and I'll just need a lot more of this stuff. This
Mhm.
morning juice.
Yep. I'm surprised that I'm so chipper because still had playoffs last night. Curling,
Oh,
this time my four-person team. They schedule a match at 9:20 for some reason. And because it's playoffs, we get to play all full 8 ends because normally we have a 2-hour hard stop.
hmm
So sometimes we stop at 6 or at 7 ends. But we get to play all 8 ends, and the match we played had to go to all 8 ends. But we won. So
congratulations. Well
I'm
done.
still in the playoffs in two of the three categories that I curl in. So that's really great. In the headlines, well, the orange shit stain got indicted. He got arraigned, and we happened to have a special guest booked for today, and it just so happens that it was perfect timing because he's a return guest here to the Beaver Lodge. I keep on saying that if there was a Journalism Hall of Fame here in Canada, he would be in it.
Agreed.
Legendary foreign correspondent, overall good guy, makes time for us. We're big fans. Has worked all over the place, including South Africa, and is stationed in the US. And currently his beat is the Trump beat.
Shall we
And
bring him on in?
yeah, it just so happens it's the day after Christmas. So let's bring him in. Legendary foreign correspondent Keith Boag. Welcome to the Beaver Lodge, sir. Welcome back.
Good morning. Currently, my beat is retired. Retired.
Well,
But
that's
you
always
do
good.
it with such style.
No, thank you.
You must have been very busy yesterday.
Well, it depends on what you mean by busy. Because no, not really. Because I was just sort of sitting like a couch potato, taking it all in on the TV. And
Did you have popcorn?
I talked a lot about having popcorn and needing extra butter and stuff, but no, I didn't.
Yeah, I imagine the greasy fingers get in the way of typing, especially with these tiny keyboards.
With great
So,
anticipation.
yeah. So, what are your first impressions?
In a way, it's still hard to believe it's paying close attention to whether the charges are insufficient to justify the president of the United States. I don't agree, but I find the debate interesting anyway, because it needs to be pretty strong, mainly because it's very heavily documented. It seems to me that there's much doubt that law, an argument about whether.
Keith, I think we're having some audio issues. You seem to be cutting in and out.
Really?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, we're missing a lot of the words.
I don't know what's happening because it was.
Do about that.
Yeah, no. It was fine just a moment ago, so I don't know what happened there. But it's cutting out a little bit. But let's just keep rolling. Let's just keep rolling. We'll do the best we
can. I've been charged as a felony, charged as a misdemeanor. The district attorney can make the case felony because a crime committed in furtherance. I find all of that really interesting to hear that, see how it plays out. The next, as you probably know, isn't until, and that's a court appearance. It's not the beginning. Now and then, there are going to be other charges on what are more serious crimes, Lord, and probably to the election with the Georgia results and so on. Still a lot more water to come wherever it goes. Between we turn our attention back to this discussion about whether a president is above the law or is one the United States, and unfortunately it needs to be, as Donald Trump has really pushed the envelope of whether the president, since he was in office, president could be indicted and should. Questions have seemed to be floating around and his presidency since the very anyway. Those are my first impressions. What about you?
Unfortunately, we missed most of it. Do you happen to be using Safari as your browser as opposed to Chrome? Okay. Yeah. If you could switch to Chrome, that would make it easier for us. If you happen to have it.
To my iPhone. But if what happens if I switch here on my laptop,
Yeah, it's weird how when we were in the green room earlier, everything was fine, perfect, and then as soon as we go live, it seems to have an issue with the software sometimes
Mhm.
if it's Safari.
Really,
Yeah, and
so right.
the last time we
Yeah.
spoke, we had recorded audio only, so there were no issues because we weren't restreaming or live streaming at the time. So that might have been even time. So that's an oversight on my part, and I apologize.
I just got to put in some things worth
Yeah, no problem.
even talking right now.
All right.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll just put you in the green room for a minute while you're getting that fixed, Keith, and we'll bring you right back in just a minute, okay?
All right, there we go. So yes, sorry, I'm a little discombobulated there for a
It's
second.
okay. I might be able to hear you a little better there. Can you hear us? No, he's still working on it.
Yep.
Okay, no, we'll just wait a minute.
Okay, so the indictment came along, and it's pretty much a bare bones indictment. Basically the main crime he's being charged with is falsifying of business records in the first degree, and doing that for the purposes of concealing other crimes. The language in the statement of facts says specifically that he was involved in an unlawful catch and kill scheme to, quote, influence the 2016 presidential election by identifying and purchasing negative information about him to suppress its publication and benefit the defendant's electoral prospects. Now, the district attorney is relying on the concealment of violation of election laws to elevate the charge of falsification of business records to a felony. So in this case, each individual check would be its own count. Each individual false entry into a ledger would be its own count. And that's how we get to 34 charges in this particular case. It's how would you put it? So there's no racketeering so far.
Mhm.
And the interesting thing is that in New York, it seems that how would you put it? You don't have to actually charge the secondary crime in order to elevate the misdemeanor into a felony. So Alvin Bragg, who is the district attorney in Manhattan, says that Trump falsified the documents, quote, with the intent to defraud and with the intent to conceal other crimes. And those other crimes to which he refers are New York State conspiracy to promote an election by unlawful means, federal campaign donation limit crimes, New York federal tax crimes, and false statements with regard to David Pecker's AMI company having to falsify their business records. Now, Alvin Bragg did not charge those crimes because under New York state law, he's not obligated to at this time. And it might be that the falsification of records was the easier charge to prove. So he's just going that one. So there will be no decisions on the other type crimes so far, unless during the course of the trial and there's more investigation, more testimony, then with that, coupled with that, Bragg then decides to bring the charges later on, which he can do. The DA's office did not ask for a gag order. Even though it seems that people in Trump world are really, really begging for one. We've seen pictures of Trump himself apparently holding a baseball bat. And I guess
rather threatening manner.
They maintain that somebody else added Alvin Bragg's photo into that and that he was just promoting good American manufacturing.
Sure.
And then Trader Tot, after probably having another bump of Adderall or cocaine, well, I mean, went on and then did this whole thing and decided to post a picture of the judge's daughter on the web saying that she was conflicted somehow. So this so far did not provoke a gag order. Apparently judges like to give a warning, then a strong warning, then slap them with them. But they did ask for protective order on discovery so that Trump and Team Trump couldn't release a lot of information, and no decision on that has been given at the moment. All right, we have Keith back again.
Can you hear us, Keith? Okay, but we can't seem to hear you.
We are
Let's try again.
Oh, wait.
We got you now.
No, we're hearing ourselves in echo.
No.
Yeah, we're getting a bad echo.
Hearing echo now.
Yeah, hang on a second. Let's try something here. I'll try this, and then I'll try this. How about now?
Hear me now?
Yeah, we're getting a terrible echo there. Weird. So we've got the two feeds. Let's see here. Can you hear us?
Should be.
There we go.
Okay.
That's
should
great.
be good.
Yeah,
We'll try
that's
that.
great. All right. Let's try again.
I'm still
What were
okay.
what were your opening
Doing
impressions?
very well, right? Sorry?
That seems we have a bit of a delay too. So yeah, we have a long delay here between it. Sometimes the technology it just fails at the best opportune times, it seems. Alas.
All right, let's try again. And we'll take some time before chatting back and forth with the delay. Again, what are your initial impressions, sir?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Am I getting a list on your?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I don't know. I thought indictment just in part, but all of the
No, same problem.
listed. We're still having. We are.
No.
Yeah, major issues.
Right.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
We can't hear you, unfortunately.
And I try the other one, but there's no audio, it seems, on the other feed. If you disconnect your earbuds and just use the mic on the laptop, that might work. This is the laptop microphone. And that's your phone that you're using. Let's try that.
How's that?
That seems to work.
That's better.
I don't hear it.
Sometimes it's there's a delay between the Bluetooth headset and the browser that creates an issue. But you should be able to hear us now. Can you hear us now?
Yeah, but I think I'm listening. Create an echo for you, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a little bit of an echo there at the same time. Technology is so frustrating.
All right. Should we try to reschedule? Anyone?
It's up to you, Keith. If you want, we can try this again, and we'll spend a little bit more time in the green room in advance. It's weird because when we were in the green room, everything was perfect. There were no issues whatsoever, no echoes, no delay. We were having a great back and forth conversation. So for some reason, the technology just decided to fail when we went live.
Want me to just call back in?
Yeah, if you want to try that, yeah.
Yep.
Let's try that.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay, we'll be here.
We are having a time with guests this week.
It happens. You know, technology is great when it works, and when it doesn't work, it can be really tiresome, troublesome, and a pain in the bottom.
I mean, first we were supposed to have Keith Boag last Friday, and life got in the way.
Then there was confusion about
Monday. Then the mistaken identity. Then Keith spoke today, and the tech doesn't work. It's just like, ugh.
Sometimes how it goes in a live show, man. It's live.
We try, kids. We try to bring it.
It's live. And I'm sure, Keith working in the industry for a long time, he would understand that sometimes technology just doesn't want to work. This is just simply how it happens. There's a gremlin in the system, and we do what we can to try and make it work. But
yeah.
It's just what happens.
Yeah, I blame Trudeau. That's what Saucy says. Damn you, Trudeau. So let's go on more about this. So we have the thing, right, basically from August 2015 to December 17, the defendant orchestrated the scheme with others to influence the presidential election, as we said before, with the quote, by identifying and purchasing negative information about him to suppress its publication and benefit his electoral prospects. Now, the portion with David Pecker from AMI is that David Pecker, I guess they had some type of arrangement where he had agreed to be the eyes and ears of the campaign during it, in case there were stories that he needed to catch and kill, but he would also help by using his position as, the head honcho at AMI to use his publications to publish negative stories about his competitors. Gee, must be nice to have friends. So one of the first stories they got was the one of the doorman who was alleging that Trump had fathered a child out of wedlock, which apparently is not true. But the doorman was paid $30,000 for that story. Then there was the Karen McDougal thing, where she was promised $150,000 and as well 2 magazine covers and a series of articles to be published under her byline. But that didn't happen. And then came along another woman who was paid $130,000 in order to hide a one-time encounter, not even an affair. And that woman happened to be Stephanie Clifford, otherwise known as Stormy Daniels. Now,
Was that what her real name is? I didn't know that.
Yeah, Stephanie Clifford, yeah. It seems that when it comes to her, to use an artful or maybe inartful term, it seems that the former president tried to stiff her twice. Yes, apparently with David Pecker, they had made arrangements.
Wait a second. David Pecker tried to stiff her?
David Pecker and Trump tried to stiff her. Yes.
The joke just writes itself.
I know, right? So apparently it seems that they were having discussions to try, they said they were going to pay her, but to try to delay the payment until after the election. So if the story came out then, it wouldn't matter, and they would not have to pay her. That's how greedy this man is. Not only did he take the money he was giving and try to expense it as a business expense so that he could get the tax deduction from it. And of course, to be able to falsify it, to see it all the way through, because if only Michael Cohen had reported it and it wasn't reporting accounting, right? Whatever you report on one side has to be reported on the other. But it wasn't just $130,000. Oh, no. It was $130,000 plus a $50,000 bonus. And that entire amount was doubled, so the taxes were covered. So they put a lot of thought into this.
Mm-hmm.
And they did this often. And apparently it's a scheme that was not only used for Trump, but for people like Elliot Brody, who I believe was the president of the Republican Party or something like that for a while, to cover the fact that he had a mistress. And I believe she had to have an abortion, but I may be wrong on that. But yeah, Elliot Brody was not... let's just say not the most upstanding of citizens, it seems. He was a former lobbyist and businessman, and served as the finance chairman for the Republican National Committee. So not the president, but the finance chairman. Yes, as Kit Linda M says, he'll do anything not to pay a contractor.
No kidding. He's famous for not paying, so
That's
figure.
why
he would try and turn this into a tax write-off and not pay. None of it surprises me. None of it. Not
all of it. All of it is still somehow shocking and yet not surprising whatsoever.
Yeah. The man will go to any length to not pay a bill if he can avoid it.
Oh man! So
nothing like raw dog on a porn star while your wife is sitting at home nursing the baby she just gave birth to. And that's not a knock against Stormy Daniels, by the way. Stormy's awesome. She's whip smart. You can't get anything by her. Yep. Her Twitter game is like top notch. Forget about it. People try and insult her daily, and she just turns it right around, and is really good at ripping them new ones.
Yeah, I must be the only man one of the only men on the planet that actually first loved Stormy Daniels for her mind. I don't know. I didn't know her previous work, and I still don't. So there you go. All right, we have Keith Boag again.
Trying again. Do you hear me now?
Yes.
Loud and clear.
Perfect. Thank you. All right.
Sorry.
That's okay.
No worries. Let's try again. What were your first impressions?
Listen, I can just pick up on the conversation where you were, because I think you're making an excellent point there about how they considered anyway, trying to stiff, as you put it, Stormy Daniels.
Sorry, I'm making you say that.
The reason that's important is that if you could imagine a defense for Donald Trump, it might have been that he wasn't trying to affect the election outcome in any way. He was just trying to prevent his wife Melania from discovering that there was an illicit affair with Stormy Daniels. But that doesn't work anymore because it's quite clear in the documents that they discussed maybe delaying the payment to her until after the election so they could not pay her at all, right? Which has nothing to do with Melania, but that's going to be actually important evidence to establish what the purpose of the hush money payment was, and that it wasn't anything personal to do with Melania at all. And I think that's important because there are a lot of references made to the John Edwards case. Are you familiar with that one?
Mm-hmm. Yep,
he was a presidential candidate who got caught in similar circumstances and tried to buy the silence of his lover and mother of an illegitimate child. And he was charged with using with violating campaign finance laws because the allegation was that he was trying to prevent the electorate from finding out about this illicit affair. And he defended himself, I guess, somewhat successfully because it led to a hung jury, but he defended himself by saying, no, he was trying to protect his family and prevent his wife from finding out. And they couldn't really prove otherwise to the satisfaction of a jury. But in this case, Donald Trump, it's going to be easy to prove otherwise if he tries to make that argument. But it sounds like, from listening to the legal advice and listening to the former president, that they're really going to try the Hail Mary pass by trying to get the whole thing dismissed as a prejudicial prosecution of a former president for political reasons. And it just doesn't look like that when you look at the strength of the case and the fact that the charges are legitimate charges. But they're welcome to try that, and I think a lot of people in their camp genuinely believe this is a political prosecution, so maybe they'll get away with that. Let me help them a little better.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Now, Trump didn't say anything at the time. He was walking in and walking out. There could have been a moment for him to say something. He did decide to choose until about 8:15 last night. He couldn't get out of New York fast enough. I mean, as far as we know, the only thing he said the entire time he was in the state was not guilty 34 times.
I've heard it suggested that he might have wanted to say something in the corridor, but he's not special. You don't get to do that if you're being walked into court to face charges. It's not, you don't get to stand and hold a press conference before you do it. Right?
Yeah, I thought he might have done something at Trump Tower before leaving in the motorcade, right? It's like
that he could have done.
Yeah, but he chose not to. And I know, Mr. Grizzly, I saw your tweet because I was getting ready to go on the curling ice, and it's like 38 seconds. Nope, can't watch this anymore. Already done with it. I did watch it. Fortunately, it was not long. I'm surprised by how awful it was. There was nothing new. It was just, I mean, I know that nobody comes and sees the band that's been around for 40 years for the new songs,
but yeah,
like he put no effort into that. There's nothing new. It literally was the old same old pap, and there wasn't really much passion or anything. It was rather womp womp.
Well, he started to play his accordion. It's a terrible thing. It never happened. It's Russia. And I'm like, I'm out.
Well, he may have planned to say all kinds of nasty things about the judge and the prosecutor and so on,
right?
But he's been warned not to do that. He's been warned by the court that there's no attempt to put a gag order on him now. But that option will always be open, and I think the judge made it clear that he's paying attention. That don't think you can go and make a speech tonight in Florida where you disparage me or the prosecution in unseemly terms, and I won't hear about it, and won't act on it. I will hear about it. I will act on it. But have a nice day.
Your camera seems to be moving up and down a lot.
That's
it's a little Blair
Witch. That's just another problem. Do you want to hear all about
that? Have you tried Ozempic today? No, I'm
trying to stop it from falling over.
There you go. I just fell.
See how necessary that is?
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. And it's true. Reports were that 45 intended to revert to his time-tested strategy of attacking prosecutors that essentially bring forward cases that he can't avoid.
Yeah.
And apparently he was on the record saying that to his inner sanctum in Mar-a-Lago that it was time to, and pardon the language, but to politically fuck him up when it comes to Alvin Bragg, publicly referring to him as a psychopath. So I'm sure the judge saw what was coming for him at that point.
And, you know, I mean, the lesson was not overlearned. The lesson was properly learned January 6th, 2021. And his words have power, and they have the power to incite violence. And if he chooses to target, then that person has reason to be fearful for their safety. I mean, it's just a terrible thing, an extraordinary thing that you would have to even consider taking a measure against a former president of the United States so that he doesn't incite people to hurt people who are just doing their jobs. But that's very much what Trump is about. This is, I mean, I'm not the first to point out that this is mob behavior, mob boss behavior. It's not the behavior of a former president of the United States. And he seems to fall comfortably into that role.
Yeah, I agree.
I couldn't agree more. Could not agree more.
Well, everything seems to be that way, right? Too, when you're talking about him, it's like the way he talks, the way he orders people around, the way all of that is just. There's just a lot of ick.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure whether it's fair comment to point out that his lawyers also sound like they're used to representing that kind of people, and I think at least in some cases that's a matter of fact that they have represented underworld figures. And I mean, it's just odd that, you know, they're like the style and apparent caliber of his legal defense is not what you have become accustomed to when other presidents have had legal difficulties and been represented, and those lawyers have spoken publicly. It all has a very kind of strange feel to it. But we're getting used to it, or we have gotten used to it.
Yeah, and I'm thinking that, you know, because a lot of these things are firsts. I mean, you know, they had plans for them in theory, but now they're actually operationalizing them. And once you do it once, it then becomes easier. Because I mean, it's not like the United States is the first, right? I mean, like Sarkozy went to jail. Right? So like this is not odd in other nations. It
Not
just
at
seems
all.
to be odd in the United States.
It's happened in France. It's happened in Italy. It's happened in Israel.
Berlusconi, didn't he get charged and go to prison?
I think that he might have got away with community work for a year or something like that. But he was charged and found guilty and sentenced. But I don't think he went behind bars. But I could be wrong about that. It's not my.
But this is not an unprecedented. This is not an unprecedented case in the world. Just the United States.
And you know, there's been a lot of commentary on his side about how this is going to turn us into a banana republic in the United States. But on the other side, saying no. This is actually the maturing of American democracy when you respect the fact that no one is above the law, and if you commit a crime, then you do the time, kind of thing. And you know, I think that argument is a more effective argument. You know, those who think he shouldn't be tried because this crime is not sufficient to bring a president into the courts, I think they should supply a list of all of the crimes that the president of the United States should be allowed to get away with that other people should.
Because that's
just
what they're
so
saying.
We know what the terms are. That is what they're saying, right? Because this has been pointed out often. This kind of charge is often referred to as the bread and butter of the district attorney when they're doing white collar crimes. They very, very, very often have falsification of document charges in them because that's such a common practice among those who commit financial crimes such as fraud and so on. It's always part of the charge. It's not new.
Yeah.
Am I sounding badly again?
No, you're sounding great. Wasn't it Nixon who said to the effect of when the president does it, it's not illegal? In the David Frost interview?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. And like even then, people are going, "Wait a sec, that's not what I learned in civics class."
Well, yeah, and I'm thinking that when you're saying that this is good that we're finally doing this, I mean, I'm not a huge student. Yeah, them. We the royal we. I mean, I'm not a huge student of American history, but it would seem to be that this is correcting the thing that happened with Nixon, because Nixon, they let him off. Right, Ford let him off, and to me, I look that as the starting point for everything that's happened since.
I think that's fair. You know, that was a very divisive decision on the part of the authorities at that time. And then, of course, the president who replaced him, Gerald Ford, pardoned Nixon so that he couldn't be charged after he left office either. But this is where it all begins, the idea that you can't charge a sitting president. It all begins
that OLC memo that Nixon had written.
Yeah, but his own vice president. There were serious allegations of corruption against Spiro Agnew.
Right.
And he managed to get a sweetheart deal where he agreed to plead guilty to, I think it was a single tax fraud charge, but he was actually taking cash in the White House, right? I mean, that's how bad it was. But they were so afraid of charging him at a time when the president himself was under investigation. They didn't want to get themselves into a position where possibly you had two impeachments running at the same time.
And that's the thing that was
the vice president, right?
And that's the thing that was interesting, is that both of them were involved in their own scams, not connected to each other.
Yeah. What?
They were both corrupt individually, not together.
You're a crook. No, you're a crook. Wait a sec. We're both crooks. But you know what was interesting to me back in the time of the Michael Cohen case was that Cohen pleaded guilty, but there was also a statement of facts that accompanied his sentencing documents. And in that statement of facts, as you know, Donald Trump was identified as individual one. That did not need to be done, but he was identified as individual one who was an unindicted co-conspirator. And I think the only reason that happened was there must have been some conversations about whether they should charge the president of the United States. And remember, there's nothing that prevents that other than a Justice Department policy, like the Justice Department after the Nixon Watergate scandal. The Justice Department put itself in handcuffs and said, we're not going to be putting ourselves in this position again with the sitting president. But I think you're quite right. That is the root of all of the problems that they have experienced and tried to manage since then. And, you know, it remains the case that policy is still in place in the Justice Department, and Trump is only being charged now because he's out of office. But if he were in office again and behaved the same way again, he would have the same protection again. What do you think the likelihood of that is? Should, you know, I mean, the likelihood that Trump would if he was returned to office in the 4 years of his second term of presidency, he would commit further crimes, I think is pretty good.
It's Karen. You could set your watch to it.
Yeah.
I mean, there was no reason for him to take the documents in the first place other than, I mean, unless he's like really sentimental and like wants to like read his letters to Kim or something else, you know, by the fire when he's feeling lonely. There's no reason to keep any of that documentation unless you're planning to trade on it somehow. You
know, that to me is the great unanswered question of the whole documents case. Why was he doing it? And we see over the weekend there were reports that the investigators are asking fundraisers who have been guests of Donald Trump whether they were shown classified documents. Now, that's just, I think, just a little tidbit of what they're really after there. They want to know what he was doing with that stuff. Yeah. Right? They want to know if he was monetizing it.
Even if he was just bragging, if he's showing it to other people, that's...
This is where I was thinking, because he's such a narcissist. He'd be the guy, hey, check this. Look at what I'm allowed to have access to right here. Look at this. I've got compromat on Putin, and I've got all this information, like totally within his wheelhouse, if you will. He's just that kind of a person. Brag about everything. Look at how great it is. It's spectacular. It's huge. I've got all this huge information on China. I mean, it's not beneath him to do that.
No, but it's also not beneath him to try to monetize it as well.
He's hard up for cash.
That's a very serious thing. Or is he hard up for cash? I don't know. Right? Like when I say that, I would not be the first person to suggest that maybe Saudi Arabia, which has been very kind to the Trump family to the tune of $2 billion, maybe has an interest in knowing what some of its regional enemies have in terms of defense capabilities that the United States knows about because they have superior intelligence networking, right? I mean, we don't know.
Yep. And the UAE and Qatar got into it just recently too. They're rival states, and they both just made a little contribution to Jared Kushner's fund.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of loose ends that need to be pulled together, and it's nice to be reading that people are interested in these cases. I mean, people like the Department of Justice, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So when those cases come and the documents case, I mean, I think that what we're going to see probably in the next several weeks is some action in Georgia about trying to affect the election there. And we know that the grand jury has recommended indictments, but the process now goes to another grand jury before it even gets to the district attorney. But we're at a stage now where we know that indictments have been recommended, and it is only a matter of time before we find out whether that leads to another indictment of the President of the United States. Then we're going to hear from Jack Smith, the special investigator, who's looking at both the documents that Trump refused to give up in Florida and looking at Trump's role in the what we call the insurrection on January 6th, 2021. So there are a lot of shoes to drop in criminal terms. There are also civil cases against Trump that are pending.
Yes.
One is an accusation, a civil allegation of rape, another of defamation. Jean Carroll. It's a busy time with a lot of legal expenses coming Donald Trump's way. So,
yep. And then there's the Dominion suit.
The Dominion suit is fascinating. I don't think Trump gets caught up in that, but
it doesn't help his friends.
It doesn't help his friends, and it really is such an important case for so many reasons, right? When the evidence against Fox News continues to astonish me. I mean, it's just unbelievable. The consciousness of guilt, their willful ignorance of the facts. I don't know if you read about the brains room that they have, where they make decisions about fact checking and so on. And the brains room fact checked all the allegations, said there's nothing here, and they said, "Well, we're just going to ignore that because this is the story that our listeners want us to tell them, and we're going to tell them."
It's not about red or blue; it's about green.
Yes.
Well,
Murdoch actually said that.
And that is going to cause him a lot of trouble when they come to assessing punitive damages, because he's essentially saying the only thing that matters to me is money. So if you're listening, if that's all that matters to you, we're gonna get some.
Well, and I think that's a large part of what Trump's rationale is for gathering intel or classified documents, because to him it's just something that he can sell for money. He doesn't see it as betrayal of his country. He's like, no, I own this. I'm the president. I own this. I declassified it. I'm going to sell it to whoever I want because it's a commodity to be traded.
Yeah.
He actually said they're mine.
They're mine. Yeah.
Which is also not going to help him in his trial.
I think you're referring to the interview that Sean Hannity did with him a few days ago, where Sean Hannity is essentially saying, "You wouldn't do a thing like that." And he's saying, "Oh yeah, I would."
Yeah.
He's trying to help you.
Really? Let's talk about something else then.
It's like, get on board the canoe. The guy's paddling you to the other shore.
Yeah. So, I mean, apart from everything else, like there's a tremendous entertainment value to an awful lot of this, because it's just so unbelievable.
Is it?
I mean, what a bunch of clowns.
Are we bad?
You couldn't write this. So much? Hollywood couldn't write a script like this and get the movie made, because they'd be like, oh, nobody would ever believe that.
Are we bad to be enjoying it so much?
No.
No.
Okay. That's good. We needed that reassurance.
Thank you.
A lot of Shannon Freud taking place here.
No, because I mean, would it be bad for me as a journalist to react that way? Absolutely, it would. But I'm retired. You're private citizens. It is what it is, and it's astonishing, right? As you said, we're not making this stuff up. The one-liners are writing themselves, and we're just reacting to them in real time. No, it's not a bad thing at all.
All right, kids and cubs. Well, there you go. Rejoice. Awesome, bubbly. Uncle Keith said you could.
Yeah. And the thing is, it keeps on giving, so there's more to come. This is not the last laugh by any stretch.
Good. And I guess that means that we can keep rolling, Mr. Grizzly?
Yes. What I can do is I'll turn this camera off, and I'll run with my phone. You guys keep chatting till I get to the office, then I'll jump back in. So you don't have to go anytime soon. You want to keep the conversation rolling, keep
Oh,
it rolling.
that would be wonderful. Could you?
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah. So I'm going to jump out. The stream will keep going, and I'll join you in a few minutes. Back in a few minutes. Okay.
All right.
Take care. Be
Oh,
careful.
wow. How cool is that? All right.
So
well,
let me add,
we have bonus beaver.
let me add this, Douglas, while we're yucking it up and enjoying it. That's one thing, in the immediate circumstances, but I do think that it's a hugely serious story.
Yes.
The danger that the United States is in, with so many people, so many millions of people believing that Donald Trump is a truth teller, and in some cases believing that he's Jesus Christ.
Right.
That is a scary thing that needs to be taken seriously. And these momentary pauses for a laugh when something is just so ridiculous as the evidence in the Fox Dominion case, sure, enjoy that, but also remember that these people have been on air knowingly telling lies to satisfy their audience that have had an enormously damaging impact on civil society, on people's understanding of what's going on in their own country, and the consequences of that are incalculable. We gotta, people have to stay vigilant, and we have an epistemic crisis happening in the United States where people don't know what to believe, what knowledge is anymore, and that is a serious thing within which a democracy cannot function.
Right.
And we need to pay close attention to what is happening in the Fox Dominion case in a very serious way to see if it is in some way the beginning of a way out of this nightmarish idea that facts don't matter.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering about that because a lot of the things with the Dominion case with Fox is that Fox saw. It's almost similar to the Freedom Convoy that we had here in Ottawa, where there was an established conservative entity, the Conservative Party of Canada, in this case, and then they saw suddenly a whole bunch of money going to competing conservative sources, which may not have been there before. I mean, Fox was the highest rated network in part because it was the only game in town on that side of the political spectrum, whereas reasonable, rational, everyday people trying to get information had many other sources. You got ABC, NBC, CBS, and everybody else. But Fox, everybody was just funneled there. And then all of a sudden comes, when OAN and the other one, I can't, Newsmax. And I guess there are other ones now. And Fox wasn't Trumpy enough, and people weren't getting their confirmation bias hit directly to the veins injected there. So they went to other places that were telling what they want to hear, and they saw viewer share disappear, and they saw money disappear, and they said, oh my God, that's money that should be coming to us. We need to get it back. Just like when the Conservatives saw the donations go to all these other parties like the Mavericks and the trucker movements and say, wait a minute, that's $20 million that should be in our coffers. All of a sudden, we've got to make time for these people, right? When those decisions that they make then to go even more Trumpy, more to the right, to get the people that have strayed away back, right? That's a dangerous movement because now you're a network you fear your viewership, almost like the Republicans fear their base. So they're not making decisions in the best interest of the party. They're not making decisions in the best interest of the nation. They're not even making decisions in the best interest of some type of ideology or policy. It really is all amounting to, we must keep these people in the fold. And anything that we need to do to keep these people in the fold, we're going to do. No matter how much we have to pretzel ourselves. And that, why isn't anybody talking yet about bringing back something similar to the fairness doctrine or anything, which is the part that allowed these types of news organizations to exist in the first place? I mean, the solution is there. The United States had something and it worked. And we did the same thing in Canada with regard to foreign ownership of press. Harper changed that, and nobody's just changing the law right back. The solutions are there, so why is nobody proposing them?
I think in the United States, it's easily explained by the fact that Congress can't do anything that offends a certain constituency in the Republican Party, right? I don't think you find an analog on the left. Maybe around immigration, there's so much disagreement about that. But, if they can't do anything about regulating guns, they're not going to regulate speech, and I think that if somebody were to propose like a return to the fairness doctrine, it would be immediately framed as trying to kill Sean Hannity and Tucker Carlson and Fox News. And there'd be some truth to that. It's just that not everybody wants to see that result. But, one of the things that's really scary is that in the culture, what Fox is doing, it tells itself, is respecting its audience, right? Now, that's a very twisted idea of what it means to respect your audience when they deliberately lie to them because the audience wants to be lied to. That is not the role. I mean, do we even want to call them a news channel anymore? I mean, it's just, that is such a ridiculous principle that respecting the audience means tell them what they want to hear, even if it's not true. And they have to get past that. Once you've started it, how do you get out of it? It's not an easy thing. It's not an easy, because they do have, an enormous audience that does think it's being told the truth. And can you, I mean, it'd be interesting to see whether in a judgment against Fox, part of the settlement involved them going on the air and telling their audiences at a particular time for a number of nights, night after night, that we lied to you and we knew we were lying.
But they had that originally, didn't they? That not individual hosts, but they had to like put stuff on the network. Now it wasn't for all that long and all that time, but that was put up there.
Not really. What they put up there was a clarification that they didn't mean to mislead people into thinking that Dominion was actually rigging its voting machines. They just wanted to say that point of view was out there. No, I want more than that. I want them to say, we knew what the truth was and we decided not to tell you because we were afraid of you. But so we lied and we didn't tell you what we really thought. Because so much of this has revealed what they really did think behind the scenes. They knew they were lying. They knew that the election hadn't been stolen. Rupert Murdoch was very concerned about what was happening in the country. But again, it was all about the green to him and he could have stepped in. And he says, in typical Rupert Murdoch fashion, well, I kind of wish I had done. Like as though that's some kind of a make good on the whole proposition. It's not. You didn't. And this is the consequence. So we'll see. But it's a great test, I think, that the U.S. is going through right now in a lot of ways. And those are serious things that we should be sympathetic about and also vigilant about, because I don't think we want to import that to Canada.
No. So we have all this Trump stuff going on. He's going to be busy in Georgia, and the documents case is progressing. The E. Jean Carroll case is progressing. I heard at some point that there were 53 different prosecutions which he was involved. I'm guessing most of them are civil at this point. And that's all happening on one side, and that will take the time that it takes. And then you got the Dominion case on the other side. And then as all this is going on, you have a nomination race going on for the GOP.
Yeah.
I believe there are 4 or 5 declared candidates at the moment.
Are there that many? We haven't, like DeSantis, who is the number 2 on most polls, has not declared yet.
He hasn't officially declared, yeah.
Nikki Haley has declared. A few people have declared they're not running. I don't think we're up that high yet, but
Asa Hutchinson just came in over the weekend, I believe.
So I don't have a list.
Okay.
And I frankly, I'm not convinced there's going to be a real race. Whether Trump's prospects have been enhanced by the indictments, I don't know. There's some evidence that at least in the short term they have been enhanced. But I think, most of the polling has showed for quite some time that it's still Trump's party. There have been little blips where people think, oh, Ron DeSantis is more popular. Well, yeah, but it just doesn't last long. it looks like, all things being equal, the party's going to nominate him again. So there.
Okay. As far as I can tell, we have 4: Donald Trump, Nikki Haley, some entrepreneur who's named Vivek Ramaswamy, who I've never heard of before, a young former tech and finance CEO, and Asa Hutchinson, who declared over the course of the weekend, who appears to be the only one in the Republican Party somewhat making a stand that Trump needs to go. And I find that really interesting, that all his rivals, whether declared or not, are all tripping over themselves. Mike Pence going, it's outrageous that the former president be charged. Why? He tried to have you killed and your family as well. Why aren't you the first one in the line popping Cristal?
Yeah.
Right.
But you see where Mike Pence finishes up in these polls too.
Right.
They toss
Nowhere.
his name down there. I mean, it's just got to be so embarrassing for him.
But
that's the whole thing, looking right? For something to find traction with, and it's just not there for him.
But so again, it's been many years now. There hasn't been an iota of a signal from any data point that lets you know that you're on the right path. Why is he not saying it?
And there's an element of your party that wanted to hang you. Literally hang you.
I would literally have no F's left to give at this point. If I was him. I do not understand him. He's a very, very weird character. I don't know what it is. I don't know what path it is he thinks he has. You have Chris Christie talking about maybe, possibly, but nobody seems to be interested in him either. And ever since DeSantis, people seem to think that it's going to be Trump versus DeSantis, and this has come on. Trump seems to have almost like doubled his lead in the polls against him, and DeSantis, even DeSantis wouldn't come up. Like he tried once a little bit. He said a little something where he was like making a comment and referring to, well, I don't know anything about any hush money payments to no porn stars, but so like trying to sully him, but not going for a swing. And even he, like 3 days later, back and go, oh my God, this is a terrible thing. It's like, do you want to beat him or not?
Well, the only way that they're going to get past Trump is if they do something like the Democrats did in 2020, when they decided they needed to stop Bernie Sanders. And, they looked around at who was running and who had the best shot at doing that, decided it was Joe Biden, and pretty much everybody flocked to him, dropped out of the race and said, let's get on with it. And it was over.
Yeah.
Basically in one primary.
Right after South Carolina, I believe.
In South Carolina, right. And that, to me, is the only way that the Trump train can be stopped within the Republican Party as well. But they're not doing a very good job at it. They're just not finding somebody who they can coalesce around, who will have money behind them, so that they don't get in the trap that they were in 2015, 2016, where the field remains divided, and Trump has the largest segment of it. So through a process of attrition, which the structure of the Republican Party allows very easily, or compared to the Democrats, they allow it quite easily. Trump was able to just hang in there until they all fell away and he became the nominee. If they want to stop that, they've got to make sure it doesn't get prolonged in the way that it was in 2015, 2016, and that they decide that there's going to be one person, and that person is going to have all of our support, all of our financing, all of the oxygen we can give him or her. But it's not too late for that to happen, but it's getting late.
But they can't even agree to present a counter proposal for the budget. How are they going to agree on one common nominee?
No, the party's a mess. It doesn't know what it stands for. It only knows who votes for it, and it knows how to push their buttons. So, owning the libs is not a platform. But that seems to be mostly what Donald Trump is about, a large part of the reason why they like him. And it seems to be entirely what Ron DeSantis is about. But it's not that is not a platform. Or maybe it is a platform, but
I guess they're hoping it is.
It's not one that you can do much with, right? You can't contrast yourself with the Democratic Party on every policy issue just by saying, yeah, but we won't be them, we won't be them, we won't be them.
Here's the thing that I'm wondering is that if the party really wants to be rid of him, they can, because, I mean, last time all they had to do was say, well, you won't show us your taxes, we're not approving your nomination. And we literally could have avoided all this had the party actually just done that. Now we have seen his taxes. And they could say, and there's stuff in it. They say, no, sorry, we can have you on your nominee. Have you seen your taxes? What do you do? But they won't enforce that either, right?
But they're afraid of the base. I mean,
Yeah,
the problem is not, the problem manifests itself in the weakness and to some the cowardice of the leadership of the party, which is on full display every day. But the real problem with the Republican Party is that it has been fooling around with its base for more than a decade, telling them they're allowed to believe what they want to believe, telling them to distrust government and government institutions. And now they're reaping the consequences of that, because they have an out of control base that believes that Donald Trump is Jesus Christ in some respects, or in some corners of that base.
Or
and how do they manage that? They anointed in some fashion. They can't control that. As Jack Kennedy used to say, something like, he who rides the tiger eventually winds up inside it. And that's what's happened to the Republican Party. They tried to ride the tiger and they've been swallowed by it.
Jeez. Is there, you got Marjorie Taylor Greene saying, like, we need to divorce. Is that where we're heading? Because I've been thinking that for years already. It's like, what? Just get a divorce already. You guys can't stand each other. Yeah. But then again, you get like this one nation of like really ultra hardcore right wingers, and I'm sure their ambitions won't remain to just making their own nation.
But
their utopia.
Without being too literal about it, that is happening by degrees anyway. If you look at how, in the short time since Roe v. Wade was overturned, you have this huge disparity in the availability of abortions, depending whether you're in a red state or in a blue state. And there are other things happening in red states in terms of books in schools, in terms of whatever they seem to see as woke issues and so on. And this silly notion, that DeSantis has, that you can actually pass a law, an anti-woke act, and all that kind of stuff. In real ways, in concrete ways, the United States is dividing, as though it's now two separate nations. Mm-hmm. It's not going to happen in one respect, which is that those red states want to separate from the United States, perhaps, but they don't want to separate from the United States Treasury, where a lot of them, their budgets would collapse if they weren't getting transfers from the federal government, or, like realistically from blue states to red states. Mm-hmm. But no, we're seeing two distinct Americas emerging, and it's such a there he is. It's such a tough and sad thing.
Why would what would be your impression? Because as a Canadian, I always wondered this. If I live in Mississippi, if I live in Alabama, right, I am constantly near the bottom on every social development metric: quality of education, infant mortality, mothers surviving childbirth, all that kind of stuff. And I keep on voting Republican, and it keeps not getting better. And I keep on hating those Democrats in those Democratic states, but they do have the education and lower. But why is nobody making the connection after like 50, 60, 70 years?
That's a very big question. There are a lot of interesting ways to approach it. In the 20...
That was me.
Oh, okay.
No, that was me. That was my computer.
In the 2016 primary, Donald Trump said something after one of the primaries that he won, that the polling had showed that he had the votes of the poorly educated. And he said, I love the poorly educated. And I think there was a lot of kind of smug blue state thinking that he was saying that he liked stupid people. But no, that constituency is very suspicious of formal education, because they see that as kind of the root of liberalism. So when you talk about how their education rates and then funding for education
is low. That hurts a lot of people, and a lot of people in those states don't like it, but there are a lot of people in those states that also think there's something wrong with the school system. They're indoctrinating our kids. They're teaching them things that we were never taught and we didn't want to be taught. They're teaching them things that are just going to turn us into the blue states where everybody's woke and stuff like that. So the education question itself is fraught with difficulties that are political, and you see them being exploited now in red states when, you know, as I mentioned earlier, the book banning and so on. But there is this suspicion that education itself is the purview of elite liberals and something that decent, hardworking red state Americans should be suspicious of. What I find just unbelievable, like driving through Alabama on beautiful highways that were paid for jointly by the federal and the state government,
Right.
past public works. I think NASA has a big place in Alabama, and
Yes.
they provide a lot of jobs. And where do they think the money for this stuff comes from? Like, you know, it comes from the Washington they hate, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I keep on saying we because it's a royal we, but this thing in the States where Democrats pass a bill, Republicans vote against it, but then they show up at all the ribbon cuttings and say, "Look what I did for you."
I was going to say
I mean,
exactly the same thing. Just remember Joe Biden in the State of the Union. Like,
right.
he can be very funny at times, and he has such a sharp political instinct where I think near the end of his speech, he said that we're going to go ahead and do these things. And by the way, I'll see you at the groundbreaking. And then he just sort of laughed. I know Republicans are going to vote against this, but we're going to get it through because it's the right thing to do, and we'll see you at the groundbreaking.
Yeah,
and
because
it's true.
They say no. You always take the dough.
Yeah. So.
All right.
Well, we had a whole bunch of that in the province of Ontario with our esteemed Premier Doug Ford taking credit for federal programs. We got the child care benefit done. We got the $10 a day daycare done. We got it done. They're all federal programs.
All you did was say yes to the money. Yeah, I know. It's kind of weird here. Mr. Grizzly, do you have a ability to put up some assets from where you are?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I can do everything on my phone, bud.
Great. When you were talking, Keith, about some of the lawyers from Trump looking like they came from La Familia.
Is that what you're talking about right there?
Direct from Central Casting. And this guy literally said in the scrum afterwards, like, this is the best legal team we ever had. We're like a family.
That was one of the ones that I was thinking of. Yeah.
Are you kidding me right now? I couldn't believe it. And then, of course, yesterday, what for people were wondering a little bit more about how the day went down is that, or how the things went down is that Trump flew from Florida to New York the day before, and we saw the images on Fox of him having his OJ moment with the whole motorcade and all that kind of stuff. There was one white car in that motorcade, and I kept on saying, please tell me Trump's in the white one. Please tell me Trump's in the right one. And, and of course I'm thinking to myself, well, of course he has to have his OJ moment because, you can't let a black man have the moment. I mean, we've already established that. So he now has his own OJ moment. And he gets to New York. He did not say anything in that morning. And then he was emerged from Trump Tower in the custody of the New York Police Department and a Secret Service detail. He chose not to speak at that moment. The motorcade brought him to the courthouse where the DA's office is also. And he was processed at the DA's office like any other defendant would be. And his picture was taken, and that picture is the picture that will become the mugshot. Now, typically, New York State does not release mugshot pictures.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we didn't see it.
Is that true?
Yeah.
I thought they decided not to.
I thought they had decided not to as well, but it seems that it is typical in New York State that they do not publish mugshots as well. So
okay, there's a phony mugshot going around.
Yes.
And Trump is selling that as a...
I would assume then. I mean, I would assume it's not the real one. Yeah. he was fingerprinted electronically, and then he was given a booking number. And at the moment that he is given his booking number, that is the moment in time where he is officially under arrest. He had to wait, like any other defendant, for the fingerprints to be processed out in Albany. That took a few hours, and then the arraignment was at 2:15. He was in custody of the court personnel as well as New York Police Department and Secret Service. His Secret Service detail was with him at every single moment, so it's not like he can complain that he was treated so unfairly because there were witnesses that were there to protect him and paid to protect him. He was not handcuffed, which apparently is something they don't do if it's not a violent crime. But we did get a little bit of a perp walk. If you think of cameras well stationed outside the building. So we did see him walk a little bit from the building to the car on the way out. Not in orange and not in handcuffs, but that's as close to a perp walk as we probably will have gotten. There was when he was brought into the courtroom, that's when the indictment was unsealed, and that's when we learned what the charges were. There was video allowed outside the courtroom. There was none at all allowed of the proceedings, no audio of the proceedings as well. Journalists were admitted inside the room in order to be able to document. Still photography was allowed in the room up until the time of the start of the proceedings, which may be that which led to this image here, Mr. Grizzly, going public, which was the first image out there of anything having to do with the arraignment. So they may have just been sitting at the table before the judge came out and was announced. And if I were the judge, I would have needed to do something for a minute or two just before emerging from my chambers to make sure that it was time to get that picture taken. But petty is my favorite color. I'm not saying the judge did that. I'm just saying I would. Talk room started, and and sketch artist renderings, of course, were allowed, which Mr. Grizzly finally, Trump is a cartoon. There you go. They made his he doesn't really look like himself. You can tell it's Trump just because, but they made his face very angular and sharp, and his hands bigger. Anyway,
Wow. Tiny hands.
I'm just saying, but the angular and sharp, I mean, like they made his nose very long and pointy and whatnot. Angular and sharp, when you're doing that, usually in cartoon or caricature or something like that, it's you're trying to portray someone as
Villainous.
Yeah. It's like being photographed from under.
Mm-hmm.
Like this.
Like this.
Yes, sitting at it, like this, which makes you look like a dictator or something. Yeah, it's like never, ever pose if you're in public life for a photo taken from underneath. The story accompanying it is not going to be good. Never going to be flattering. Usually never is. So, where do you think... I know you talked about it a little bit, but where do you think we go from here? What are we looking for over the next few weeks here? Probably more, not so much with the court cases, I'm saying, but probably more with the race.
I'll be right back.
Okay.
I don't know what we're in April now.
Yeah.
I want to know when Joe Biden's going to declare. I was
right
expecting that to have happened by now, and I wonder why it hasn't. I think that if he's not going to run, then I think that he has some obligation to indicate that in good time for others to decide whether they want to seek the nomination. And I think that means he has to do it before September. But if he is going to run, I don't really see an obvious reason why he wouldn't have declared by now. I don't buy into this whole, he'd be a lame duck stuff. No, he wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
unless every president is a lame duck in their second term for the entire 4 years of it, right? I mean,
Right.
the same caveats would apply. But in terms of I don't know. I mean, how is Trump going to do on the hustings in a campaign where, he has this hanging over his head and has been warned not to be very judicious and circumspect in his language if he's going to talk about it on the hustings, which I think he's entitled to do that up to a point. But I think that's one of the things that people watching for is how does he manage his way through this, because we've never seen a former president running again, having been defeated, who has been impeached twice and is now under criminal indictment.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
it's
And is
all
viewed as a
uncharted
loser by
territory.
many members of his party.
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea that they're going to get tired of winning, kind of like it expired way before they thought that it would, right? Like
Before the first midterms.
it expired in 2017, really, in the first special elections when, in my view, and it was when they lost, when Republicans lost the state of Virginia, not just at the
Right.
executive level of the governors and so on, but they were almost thrown out of the state legislature for the first time since the early 1990s, and it was all very Trump related. And then, as you mentioned, we had the midterm elections and another special election for Senate in Alabama, then the 2020 election, then the 2021 Senate election in Georgia. I mean, it just goes on and on.
Yeah, actually, when you were mentioning
2022 midterms,
right? When you were mentioning Virginia, you made me think about Wisconsin.
Oh, last night.
Yeah, I didn't remember that it was last night. I don't know what happened actually. I just saw they just lost big in Wisconsin. That was the Republicans.
Yeah, lost big in Wisconsin.
So Prasadiewicz won.
Yeah. So
yes.
And the last numbers I saw on it were last night, so I don't know if they have changed. But what it looked like was a big win too.
Okay, let's talk about that because that was.
I don't know a lot about that.
That was deemed to be the most important election of the year of 2023 in the United States. It was a state election. I believe. Was it only for the Supreme Court?
I think that's the one. I don't know. There are elections all the time, and I don't know what all the down ballot races were, but that was the one that people were watching because that was deemed not only as a kind of bellwether for where things might be going in Wisconsin, but also because it's just important in and of itself to have a presence back in the Supreme Court like that. But I think the idea is that in 2016, Trump won by dismantling what was called the blue wall, of which Wisconsin was an important part.
Right.
And this looks like, or this is being interpreted by some as a rebuilding of the blue wall that protected Democrats. I just think that a lot of this is so volatile that you can read too much into this stuff, but it's certainly not a bad sign, that's for sure.
Yeah, because it was for the Supreme Court in Wisconsin, there's a 7-member Supreme Court, and it was 4-3 Republican, and a Republican's term was over. Or retiring, stepping down. I'm not quite exactly sure what it is. And we had 2 candidates, Janet Protasiewicz, and there was lots of advertising that was making jokes about her name because it's hard to say. And a lot of people, some people came up with the joke. It's like, well, everybody can say Janet, but it takes a Protasiewicz. So that helped people learn her name, and she was running against Danielle Kelly. She won 55.51% of the vote versus 44.49%, so a very clear victory, and that flips the court to 4-3 Democrat, and which can help. People are very excited about that because it could help with the issue of gerrymandering in the state, and maybe make it a state that is more reliably in the blue column rather than the red. Possibly. Maybe.
It just seems,
maybe.
Like it just seems that Democrats, and I think they do this, they can't sit back and not worry about anything.
Right.
They should enjoy their victories. But they should not. I mean, the stakes are just too high. You know, they're just too high.
Yeah.
People didn't understand that in 2016, but you know, now when they look at the Supreme Court and they see what was the consequence of not turning out to vote for Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
You know, like that is Trump's most enduring legacy is a very conservative Supreme Court that overturned Roe v. Wade.
Yep. I get. Yep. And he ran on that.
Yeah.
He ran on that specifically. He told them that he would deliver Roe v. Wade to them.
Yeah. And you got to consider that issue probably was very important to tipping the election to him in 2016. I mean, you look at an election that was as close as it was, the election for president in 2016, and everything that you talk about had to have mattered to some extent, right? His promise to appoint judges from a list supplied to him by a conservative think tank, all the way down to, you know, what was Russian interference, what was the effect of paying off Stormy Daniels. You know, we're talking about just under 80,000 votes that was the winning margin in over a handful of states. Everything mattered. Everything mattered.
Yep. I agree. In the race for the Republican nomination, what do we need to look for? How we put it? Where would, if Fox is no longer officially backing Trump, they'd rather DeSantis. And there are some people brave enough at least to say that he should drop out, which wasn't the case before. We'll see how long that lasts. What would be, is there anything in your sense of studying the American psyche at the moment that could be some type of wedge that could be used that might actually get some people in the party to turn against him? Because the fact that he's a many-time loser has worked with some, but not enough to be full-throated. Right? I just don't see we really need to cut bait on this guy.
So, well, you mentioned Fox, and you know, some people have studied the numbers of mentions that DeSantis has been getting over the last few months versus Trump, and he gets a lot more oxygen out of Fox than Trump does, which would seem to indicate that somewhere at the highest level, Rupert Murdoch, for instance, Fox has decided that Trump cannot be the nominee. But I look at that as, you know, even if it's true, it's probably a short-term effect. And I think back to 2015 and the first debate in the Republican primary was on Fox. And that was when Megyn Kelly went after Trump. And it was quite clear that Fox did not want Trump to be the nominee. And boy, did they flip on that within within a week or so. They suddenly realized that this was real, that their audience was strongly behind Trump, and that it wasn't going to go away, and so they got in and behind him. And I think that'll happen this time as well. I think that Murdoch was telling the truth, absolutely, when he said that for him it's not, you know, blue or red, it's green. Where's the money? And they'll read their audience that way. And if the audience wants a Trump nomination, then Fox is going to get behind the Trump nomination. So what to look for? I mean, I would be astonished if they didn't do that. But I guess it's worth looking to see whether I'm right or I'm wrong on that.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what I expect. I expect them to fall in line too.
I just don't think DeSantis is as strong a candidate as he's sometimes made out to be. And I think the fact that he gets all this attention from Fox is just not doing him any good, right? That he still can claim to be the winner that Trump is not because of the last midterm election or the last governor's race last November, where he won handily in a very tough environment for Republicans, much tougher than they thought they were going to get into, largely because of Donald Trump not keeping his mouth shut, but also because of overturning Roe v. Wade and so on. But I still don't see that DeSantis truly represents a formidable challenge to Donald Trump. And so you either see that developing very, very quickly as we head into the summer and through it, or by the time we come out the other end, Trump is going to be the de facto nominee again.
Yeah, because I mean, Trump is jabbing DeSantis at the moment.
Trying.
Yeah, he's trying to turn him into the next Jeb. I mean, that's what he did last time too. I mean, his biggest rival, he started just
and nobody really knows
from the get-go.
how to. I mean, there is no textbook on how to fight back against Trump because, you know, in one way or another, just about everything has been tried and it has failed. The moment that the U.S. is going through right now is not one that makes you believe that the normal physics of politics still apply. Trump has divided since he got into the game, and I mean with a significant part of the Republican Party. I mean, there's a lot of the country that sees exactly what is going on. The majority of the country sees exactly what is going on and is terrified by it. And Republicans, sensible Republicans, realize that when they look at that and say, we can't win this with this guy, but they can't win without him either. Right? Like it's just the most horrible position for them, but that's the way it is. You know, they are still paying a heavy price for all of the things they encourage their constituents to believe about Washington and about themselves and about Democrats, beginning with the Tea Party, right? And come back to where we were when I was talking about them trying to ride the tiger and trying to see if they could tell their constituents that they could believe whatever they wanted and could have whatever they wanted and that politics didn't matter and that their anger was justified and that it had a useful existence all on its own. None of this is true. None of it's true. But that's the story they've told, and that's the story they have to live with, and the penalty they're paying for it was something they could never imagine, which is a demagogue like Trump taking control of their party away from them.
Yeah, it just seems to me that if they want to get rid of this, it's not going to be we do this magical thing and then the next election it comes back to us. They have to be willing to accept the fact that there's going to be some pain. Right? They have to cut bait from him, and they're not because they're fearing the ace card that he's got in his pocket is that he'll go and form a third party, and that will split the vote, and then the Republicans won't win, and then it'll be a Democrat socialist utopia, and they're all going to like shrivel and die under it. But the thing is, with them, they don't win either.
Yeah.
So cut your strategically. I'd be thinking if you're playing the long game, cut it, take your loss the next election, maybe the following one after, and then get elected again because there'll be fatigue or something. But so long as you keep this guy and his base and like you're attached, you're hooked on that, and you want the fundraising dollars and the attention and the media hits and the clicks and the likes. But you literally fear your base.
Yeah.
And you fear your audience.
But not every problem has a solution.
I know, but just be in the political, accept you're going to be in the political wilderness for 8 years and then move on with your life.
Yeah. I mean, that essentially is the position of the Never Trumpers who have left the party and now are just watching the whole thing burn down. And it's just going to take some time for that to happen. But the swiftest way for it to happen is for Republicans to continue to lose following the course that they're on. That's the only way. Right?
Yeah. Losing and getting sued. Once they don't win and it costs them enough money, maybe they'll change.
There has to be a price for the folly, for sure. And there has been a price for the folly, and they're starting to recognize it, but Trump won't let them. Like, Trump is not someone you can bargain with, right?
Right.
No.
Like,
well, he's a dictator.
Yeah,
he's a dictator. That's it.
And a hostage taker. And he's and the party is the hostage.
Yeah. Well, like I keep on saying, it's like negotiating like with a 2-year-old. Eat your food now. Go to bed now. Eat your food now. No, I'll give you broccoli. No, I'll put cheese on it. No, you can have dessert first. No.
Just my way or the highway, right? And let's face it, it doesn't work.
Yeah, indeed. I think we have a show, Mr. Grizzly. What do you think?
I think so. Yes.
Keith, thank you so much for coming, and thank you for being patient with us.
Sorry about all the trouble.
It's okay.
No, but we got it.
These things happen.
Yeah,
we got it done.
And it was well worth it as well.
It was.
Well, I'm glad it worked. All right.
Good.
So,
Thank you very much. And I know that you've got, just based on our discussions, you got a lot going on, big personal changes happening. So I wish you really, really good luck with that and that everything goes very smoothly.
thank you. Take care.
All
You
right.
have a good day.
All right.
Take care.
Bye.
Eh?
Bye now.
Bye. I love that guy.
Great guy.
I really
Just
love
an awesome guy. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Ah,
Absolutely awesome, awesome person, awesome guest. So happy he was able to join us again. I was so happy I was able to make this little thing that I thought, I think I can make this work. Let's give it a shot. And it worked.
thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you
I was going to
very
use
much.
my tablet. I was going to use my tablet because it's a bigger screen and I have the buttons on my phone are very tiny. So I keep hitting the wrong ones. But the processor on my phone is much better than my tablet. So I figured, let's use the phone. Let's give this a shot. I'm using earbuds. They seem to be okay.
Mhm.
I'm using the Chrome browser, though, so that might have a lot to do with it. Obviously, the lighting is not the greatest, and these mics aren't the greatest either. But if we can get a show full-fledged like this, we can do this every day.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah.
You know. Now, that being said, there'll be times when
Yeah.
I'll have to step out for 15, 20 minutes while I get to the office and get set up.
Yeah. No, it's good for interviews because we've been trying to limit ourselves to Mondays and Fridays to have more time with our guests rather than the weekdays. But if this is an
But
option, that's
yes.
kind of cool. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
so we can do this from here on out for on the days when we have on a weekday that's not a Monday or a Friday and we have a guest for an interview. I can jump out for 15, 20 minutes while you carry the conversation on, and I can get to the office, get set up, get my workday started, and run this off my phone.
You are brilliant, sir.
I don't know about that, but the technology today that we have, we're living in the future, man. When I was a kid, this was the stuff of science fiction.
Right?
I'm able to run a full-fledged production studio on something that fits in my pocket. That is so cool.
It's amazing.
And if it falls over, that happens. But, you know.
Hey, you get it all here. You get it all here. We show you how the sausage is made. That's the whole point. It's one of the reasons why we started this. So yes, Kit Saucy says James has been making do for this long. I think you're good.
Wait, yeah,
too.
but you're gonna love James when he comes back. I was talking to him earlier. He sent me an email. He's got his Starlink hooked up. He's going to be back very soon, and his new mic sounds spectacular.
His voice just sounds so great. He's like,
well,
we're doing the Casual Fridays, and I was hearing his voice. And I was like, damn, you sound good.
Because he's using, guess what, folks? A Rode microphone. I'm a Rode guy.
Yep. And we have Kit Pete in the chat here. Say, wait a second. I know that shirt Mr. Beaver is wearing. Yes, it's the shirt from the rugby team, because rugby team that Pete was managing when he was here in Ottawa.
Okay.
Oops, I hit the mic. I was trying to show the back. Yeah, I got the chair.
No, not really.
And the kids really love this episode. They got Kit Ellen saying he's so informative. Found a new follow on Twitter. Thank you, says Kit Saucy. Elaine says, have a beyond awesome day, everyone. Oh, that wasn't about Keith. Sorry, I thought he was going to say he was beyond awesome. Kit Lindem, thank you, Keith. It was great to hear from you. Great show. Wow. Thanks, Kits. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Well, it'd be great. You know, it would be wonderful. Now, I'm just going to put this out there live.
Okay.
It'd be great if we could get Keith once a week, if his schedule permitted, once a week to get his input on things, if possible. You know, I'm not saying it's a guarantee. I don't know if his schedule allows for it, but it's a suggestion. We could bring him in once, you know, on Wednesdays if he likes that idea. Now, he did say 7 a.m. I'm not used to this.
Yeah, I'm thinking I definitely will have him on again. I'm not sure if it would be okay for a weekly thing because we want to maintain the Canadian aspect.
Yeah, well, monthly. Well, he's monthly. Right.
He's a
Keith,
friend of
the invite is there. Yes, the invite is there.
Yes, whenever he has anything to say or like this, we're more than happy to have him on. That's not a problem. But yes,
and it's uncensored commentary too, so you're free to speak your mind completely here.
Right, absolutely. And plus, he's just a wealth of information. And he's he's got. I like his analysis because he doesn't do the superlatives.
No. Breaks it
Like,
down, makes it easy for everybody to understand, which is what, our goal is, to try and take apart the information that we gather and make it into bite-sized chunks, maybe, but to break it down and make it understandable for the average individual. And a lot of the stuff that I'll read, I'm like, I'm not sure if I fully get this. So we'll parse it together sometimes, right?
right. And that's what's great about this, because I could come up and, when we let the experts talk, but I gather my bits of information, and I have like, well, I'm wondering about this, or like I put these two things together and I see this, and it's like, well, I see something different. Oh, okay, great. Because I know what I know, and I have my abilities, but I'm just one person. I am limited.
Oh, yeah.
It's nice
And it's what Keith said at the top of the show. He says, he's a retired journalist and we're private citizens. Right. So we have a lot more leeway here. We can delight in what's taking place. So did the 49th with the former president. Yeah. I can take delight in the fact that he's been charged and indicted and arraigned, and he looks like he's going to trial for sure and may very well go to prison. And I can take joy in that because A, I'm a private citizen, and B, what's not to be joyful?
Right.
Bad people getting punished for doing bad things should make you feel good. Because we know that the system, although it is the slow wheels of justice and the slow wheels of politics, because it does take a long time to get things done. Things don't turn on a dime and they don't happen in the moment. But seeing somebody get their comeuppance, who's definitely earned their comeuppance, makes me feel pretty good.
I have to admit that it does me too.
The system works. It's just not overnight. It's not instant. It's slow. And we need people to understand that. It was like I said just yesterday, people say, when I get in there, I'm going to do this to make the changes. No, that's not how it works. It can take years to get a policy fully legislated and enacted into law. Some things they can make quickly, especially if everybody says, yeah, we're in full agreement of that. Let's do it. I never thought in my lifetime I'd see cannabis legalized, and yet here it is. Right?
Indeed.
The fact that you can go to a pub and, it's like, well, I'm going to head home, but I don't have anything. I'd like to buy a couple of cans of beer to take with me. You can do that now. At one point, that was impossible. So things can change. You have to understand that it takes time. It won't happen overnight. Also, and when people panic about Bill C-11, if it turns out that it is detrimental and bad, well, guess what? We just vote in a new government and change that law. Yeah. Nothing is written in stone.
Right.
Anything can be amended.
Right. As Kit Saucy says, sometimes karma takes the long road around. You got to stay in the game. You got to be patient. Pete asked, you can have commentary and have an opinion, but is there freedom of speech in Canada? Mr. Grizzly, I will leave this one to you because this is one of your favorite topics. We have a similar concept called freedom of expression.
That's right.
Now, I'm not sure what the main difference is between freedom of speech and freedom of expression.
Well, there's limitations. There's limitations on your expression. Freedom of speech means you can say whatever hateful rhetoric you want and won't get charged for it by the state. But in Canada, hate speech is illegal. So you cannot parade through the streets preaching hatred towards a group of people and expect to get away with it. That is crossing the lines of freedom of expression. There are limitations on your expression. Society has to deem what is limitation should be. There's nothing written in stone per se in our Charter of Rights and Freedoms that says this is hate speech and that isn't. It is very fluid and flexible, and it can be determined over time what it is. But we do not have freedom of speech. We have freedom of expression. It is a very distinctly different thing than the United States of America, and you have to understand that it was written very specifically. There's a lawyer who explained why it was written that way, and it's escaping me right now what his explanation was, but it made perfect sense. We should get Mark Borey on the show sometime because Mark is a constitutional lawyer, and he'd be able to explain this much better than I ever could.
That's a good idea. We should do that. Yep.
Yeah.
I agree that.
Reach out to Mark and get him on, and he'll be able to explain it much better. And I mean, Mark's just a great guy, a great writer, and one of the funniest guests you'll ever have. Yes, great book.
Yeah,
great book.
Big Man Fear Me. Yep. All right. Well, Mr. Grizzly, just a couple of little extra notes. With regard to Trump, authorities have reported that there's been a modest outburst of calls for violence and threats, but the chatter has been, as they say, quote, disorganized and sporadic.
Of course.
So that's not necessarily a bad sign. I don't think he has the mass with him this time. If he's convicted, maybe there might be some people come up and go nuts. I always wondered when he's convicted, if he is convicted, let's say, what's going to happen, because if he did have to do jail time, I can't imagine that they would allow him in general population.
No, he'd be in a white collar institution that they call a club fed, where they have tennis courts. Like it would have to be a special wing for him as a president, right? They can't just put him in any old place.
He would have to be pretty much in solitary with nothing but guards in a Secret Service detail.
They put him in a prison where you put white collar criminals that have done things like Michael Milken.
Mm-hmm.
Remember the federal financial crimes from the 1980s that he caused the crash in 87. Was it 87? The stock market crashed, if memory serves. But they put him in a federal institution that is basically club fed. It's a luxurious place to stay. Mm-hmm. I mean, it really is. They have private tennis courts, they have swimming pools, they have saunas, they have jacuzzis. It is not hard time. Mm-hmm. It's just time.
Yeah, but that would be just for these charges. But I mean, if the Georgia ones or the other ones are other ones that might have seditious conspiracy or treason attached to them, then you're probably not
that's a different story.
Fed. And if you're in general population, I mean, with all the racism that he stoked, he certainly couldn't be there. And the Secret Service detail probably has to be protected themselves while they're there. So it's like, I'm seeing a possibility of him being alone somewhere. And if he's a whore and loves to talk,
I got to go take care of something here because I am at work. So I will jump out. I'll come back if you want to keep rolling. I shouldn't be too long.
Okay, and I'll roll a little bit, and then when you come back, I'll close the show.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. So yeah. Whew. Lots of events, Kits, over yesterday. I am sorry in a way that the last few days have been pretty American-centric, with the exception of the Prince Edward Island election. But, I mean, as political junkies, it's probably the biggest political story in the world at the moment. Kit Pete go send him to Mexico just thinking, wonder how that would go. Well, he'd be much more closer to his taco bowls. Anyway, that was another thing that always interested me, is like for a party that seemed to like really, really hate Mexicans for some reason, they were always winding up in Mexican restaurants getting shouted down by Democrats. It's like, oh, so you want the food, but you don't want the people, right? I tell you, there's absolutely no coherence or logic over time, other than the never let anything distract you from the primary objective. And they want to win. They just want to win, and they will do or say absolutely anything in order to make that happen. Couple of other things that I'll add about this, some notes that I took along the way that I didn't have time to slide into the conversation, so I'll just mention them now since I have them. Cy Vance, who was the former Manhattan DA, was interviewed by former White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki on her new show, Inside with Jen Psaki, and he said that while he was the DA. He didn't remember pairing the falsification of business records misdemeanor with a federal campaign finance violation in order to raise it to a felony. But he has, and he remembers several instances of it in which state misdemeanors were paired with different federal statutes in order to elevate it to a felony. Now, usually, a lot of people are trying to make the case that, oh, well, this has never been joined with this type of with a federal campaign's finance violation before, so it can't be. That can't be the statute that raises it to a felony. But in the United States, it doesn't matter. There's no book that says this felony is more felonious or than another. This one will raise a misdemeanor to a felony, but this one won't. All felonies are considered equal in that case. So that's not so much an issue to worry about whether or not they'll be able to actually upgrade the charge. And I see some of the kits saying, like, for example, these are charges that probably don't have mandatory jail time. So some would be possible, and that he might not get jail time for a first offense. This would probably be a first conviction, but certainly not a first offense. And like I said, if this one is the first one to be resolved, there are other cases out there that have more serious penalties associated with them, also working for him in the background going on. But if they are combining it with one of these other charges to change a misdemeanor into a felony, then that does increase significantly the possibility of jail time in terms of conviction, even if it is a first offense, because of legally there are major differences between misdemeanors and felonies and what type of sentences they can engender. You have people in the Trump camp basically crying that his only crime was all the crimes he did. My only crime, I never... Right. So yeah, they're weeping into their champagne for him, weeping into their champagne glasses. And some
I got to wrap.
Okay,
I really got. I gotta run. Like,
all right.
I'm just gonna roll the credits right away because I really got to go. Sorry, I got 4 fires to put out, and I can't. I got to go. So I'll just roll the credits, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
All right.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community and forum, and The Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from fresh farm ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind.
All right. Thank you to Keith Boag for joining us. Thank you, Mr. Grizzly, for helping us having an extended show. And have a great day, kids.